We finally turned the corner for spring. Once those temperatures warm up, it doesn't take long to melt off 2 feet of snow, but we're starting to notice some of the damage caused by the rabbits, the deer, and the voles. So let's take a look at that and see if there's any solutions. We're next to a Firegold Spirea. This is also referred to sometimes as the bridal wreath Spirea, and this is a favorite of the rabbits. This isn't the first time this has happened. They've come in and they've just nibbled back. It's interesting how those rabbits, they make just a perfectly angled, clean cut. You can also tell the evidence of all their droppings around the shrubs, just a sure giveaway. But this is a pretty quick fix. We're just going to take their lead and kind of prune it back to about the same point they did most of the damage. That'll round this shrub off. It'll leaf out. We will have to skip this year of flowering since this Spirea blooms on old wood, but that's okay. It's got that golden yellow leaf. So this is just a beautiful shrub with or without the flowers. So we're going to take what we can get and cut this back. I usually start with the loppers and do a rough cut as we're going through, and then I'll switch over to the pruners to do a little bit of that detail work to get those last little stems, and we'll finish up with just a light shearing with the Hedge shears. All right, we are looking good. Now I will mention too that this is rejuvenation pruning, where you're basically starting the shrub over, so you want to make sure that you're doing it in the dormant state before it leaves out. Once it starts leafing out, you know, your window closes pretty fast on how hard you might want to cut that plant back. We're going to go ahead and take a look at a Thornless Cockspur Hawthorn next. Now this is going to show you how high that snow level was. Those branches that you see right here, look at all this girdling that's happened. They've chewed that bark. And that's one of the main reasons we like to put these tree guards on, is to protect them from girdling that main trunk. We've got some rabbit droppings in there, but a lot of that is the leftover fruit from that hawthorn that's molding there. But you can see the rabbit droppings intermixed there. That kind of gives us the signal on who did this damage. Let's go ahead and we're going to pull that tree guard off. Make sure no voles or field mice got in there. Yeah, well protected all the way through here. So that's really cheap insurance, getting on those tree guards to protect that main trunk. This isn't going to be a problem. We're going to go ahead, we're just going to cut off these 2 lower branches because of the damage. And it actually works out to be, I don't know, in my favor, because I planted a big tuna mugo pine over here, which is just, it can be quite a large evergreen. So I don't know what I was thinking, but this is going to help us create a little bit higher tree branch structure. So that plant's got a little more room to grow. Left a little bit of a stub. You don't want to go flush with the trunk. We're going to take that as a win as far as winter damage goes, a real easy fix for that girdling. So loppers, look at that. Nice, quick, easy cut. We're coming up on an autumn Brilliance Serviceberry, and this one's been through a lot over the years. We've had some of this damage before. You can see some severe girdling, again, happening on some of those branches. And they've severed this cambium tissue all the way around. So these are branches that would die because of it. This one's been through a lot, this shrub. This went through a major hailstorm about 5 years ago. Baseball size hail, created a lot of wounding, and no disease set in, so we were lucky with that. But a beautiful shrub, white flowers in the spring, and very, very hardy for our area here in the northern Great Plains. We'll take the pressure off that branch first so we don't tear when we make our final cut. There we go, nothing to it. This one's going to clean up real nice. I know a lot of people struggle with deer that come into their yard year round. We're lucky here, it's mostly just in the winter that we get 5 or 6 that show up. You can see here, they've kind of nibbled on the end, and we can tell it's deer because it's a rough cut. Those rabbits have that perfectly clean cut. But that's deer there, and I'm betting we're going to find some evidence of the deer droppings as well. Yeah, you can see right here. This is a delicacy for our dog. I tell you what, we got to keep them out of these areas. And what we're going to end up doing on this is we're actually going to go ahead, instead of trying to rake it out of there, we'll just use the manure that the deer have left us to our advantage, and we're just going to incorporate it right into the mulch. But not much else we can do on this tree other than make some clean cuts where those jagged edges are. That's a better practice, to have that clean cut so the tree can heal itself off and avoid any kind of further infection. This is the perfect time of year to do this as well when we're talking about a late winter, early spring, plant still dormant, so plenty of time to seal it off, especially in the crabapple varieties. They are susceptible to fire blight, which is a bacteria. So I'm glad we're getting after this before our first spring rains. And here's some damage from a couple years ago on a Horstmann's Recurved Larch. You can see that wound on the main trunk right there. It's healed off quite nicely. The plant's done pretty well. Haven't noticed any dieback in the upper part of it. And it kind of just added character to the tree, since this is kind of a twisted, contorted type larch anyway. But this is their hangout area, those deer, and thankfully they left it alone this year, so I appreciate that. Okay, we're coming up on 3 Swedish aspens, and look what the deer do to these. For some reason, deer just love aspen. They rub up against them. I don't know if it's something to do with the scent, but they've completely girdled this. I feel like if I leave the deer something to draw their attention, maybe it keeps them away from some of the other plants that they would otherwise destroy. So believe it or not, these couple Swedish aspens you see here were planted the same time, 12 years ago, as this monster we've got grown by our house, which must be pushing 25, 30 feet tall. So you can see how much they just completely beat them back each year. So these are kind of my decoys for the deer, and they serve their purpose in that regard. And as our snow continues to melt off, you can see just how high that snow level was. This is where they did the girdling, almost 2 to 3 feet above ground. Thank goodness they didn't do anything on our main trunk. I didn't have a tree guard big enough, but that could have been something that would have got girdled by the voles. The field mice and the rabbits can cause some damage on it. So this is again going to be a pretty quick, easy cleanup where we're just going to remove those lower lateral branches, just like we did on some of the other examples we showed you. And we're noticing a lot of the vole damage, or field mice they're also called. Luckily it's something that a turf usually comes back from it once you pull back some of that chewed off grass clippings. Those roots underneath are coming quick. So the timing's pretty important in the spring. You got to get those clippings off so those new stolons and rhizomes underneath can push through that new grass. But if it's just saturated like we are now, you can sometimes cause more damage raking it off. We're going to let this dry out a little bit more, but then we're going to rake off all that top dead debris, and this turf is going to be just fine. It might be a little bit patchy looking, but my recommendation is typically not to throw in new soil and seed, just in case you bring in more weed seeds or that grass seed. If you don't know what variety you have, you can get an even worse patchy look. So this can take a couple months to come back, but we're confident we're going to be just fine here. And the snow load had laid down these Holmstrup Arborvitae for most of the winter, longest I've ever seen them under snow, but they've stood up. We'll have to help them just a little bit. If you're interested in a topic like that, I did a video about a year ago on the Holmstrup Arborvitae being under the snow, and you can see how dramatic it is when they stand back up. So plenty of spring work ahead of us, but we'll get at it. I'm happy to see winter behind us. Thanks again for watching Garden Hike. We'll see you again next video.